From In the Beginning to the Musical Apocalypse, this is The Bible Says What. I'm your host, Mike Wiseman. Evidence my wife goes to work. I can visit her at her job, swag with company logos on them, a paycheck from said job. It's easy to verify these things. I don't have faith that my wife goes to work or that my kids go to school. I can say with a large amount of certainty that they do these things based on the evidence that I can verify and that it's them doing these things. When it comes to Jesus doing anything, how can we tell when a particular invisible person is interacting in reality in any way? If something is interacting with reality and not seen, then that opens up the possibilities of whom that entity is or what that thing may be. Faith is pretending to know the cause out of countless options, pretending it's Jesus interacting with the world, pretending to have a relationship with Jesus, pretending that one day he'll come back and send all those naughty atheists to hell. Let's start the show.
Is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with? Okay, so it took you reading the Bible to realize that those things were bad for you?
Yeah, it actually did. I
didn't figure this out on your own?
No, Ted Bundy could be redeemed. God doesn't kill children.
What do you think the Passover was? Yahweh sets up a whole system in the Old Testament where you slaughter animals just so he's able to forgive you.
Today's special guest is speaker, author, coach, Doris Jackson-Shazier. Welcome to the show, Doris.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I am a leadership coach and management consultant who's on a mission to help leaders build high accountability and high morale teams. I believe we have to have both good relationships with high standards. I'm also an author of my first book, Raising Justice. And so I'm excited with empowering mainly moms, working moms, on how to create just really good relationships with their children.
I guess that could be good, right? And moms having good relationships with their kids.
Yeah, especially the mother-daughter relationship, because it can be complex. It can be very complex, that mother-daughter relationship. And so I like to share what I've done with my daughter. The book is called Raising Justice. Her name is Justice.
Oh.
And I like to share what I did in order to create that close relationship we have, and also how I didn't focus on raising children. I focused on raising an adult. And so Justice is a 19-year-old college graduate. And I talked about how we got there.
Good. Any tips you can throw out there that might be helpful for us parents?
I think some quick tips, really. It starts foundational. How do we build trust? And when our children really trust us, when they really trust us, it's a different kind of relationship. You're able to influence them in a different kind of way. One of the things I'm most proud of is, what Justice says about me. She says that I modeled a lot of the things that she learned. So it wasn't just what I said, but it was what I did that really helped her to learn. So yeah,
the actions that
first is establishing trust, and then how do you model the behavior that you want?
Gotcha. Thank you for that. That's awesome. So the actions are definitely helpful as well.
Definitely.
I agree. That whole do as I say, not as I do thing is ridiculous.
And it doesn't work with this generation at all. Like, I think it stopped with the millennial generation. We didn't really appreciate it. But this Gen Z generation, they're definitely not for it. They're not for, you're not practicing what you preach. They will call you out on the carpet.
Absolutely. I don't know. We tried that when we were kids. It was a whole different story. That's for sure.
We couldn't get away with it.
No. Awesome. So where does God in the Bible fit into all this?
Oh, God is the foundation of it all.
God is the foundation of it.
Oh, yeah. God is the foundation of it. So in my book, Raising Justice, first chapter in, I like to, it's called Faith and Fate. And I talk about how it was the story that almost didn't happen. My story into motherhood began outside of what I thought was a abortion clinic. And I was 19 years old. I was in college on a full scholarship, the first person to graduate high school in my family and attend college. And now I found myself pregnant by someone that I knew I wasn't going to continue the relationship with.
Hmm.
So I wanted to hide in shame and I wanted to get rid of this problem. And I looked in the white pages. I show up to what I think is a clinic. It turns out to be a Christian help center. And they
Hmm.
prayed for me and they counseled me and encouraged me in a way that I was able to put one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and continue that journey. At 19 years old, I didn't imagine that when she would be 19, that I would be sitting in the auditorium seeing her walk across the stage,
Hmm.
maybe 2 miles away from that clinic. She's
Wow.
graduating college. And so I like to say that it's a God thing. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't a cakewalk, it was a faith walk. God was all up and through it. I prayed 4 specific prayers in my pregnancy with her, and God has honored every one of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
So let's go back to the clinic part. Very
Yeah.
curious about that. So you thought it was going to be an abortion clinic. It turned out to be this other thing.
Yeah. In the white pages, it advertised confused, pregnant. You're like,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
like, I am.
Yeah, I
And
see
so
how
I
that
went there
operates
with the
there.
thought, yeah, I went there with the thought process that let me go and do this and nobody will know.
Mm-hmm. So do you attribute that to God going there?
Oh, it was nothing but God. So here, I'll
Interesting.
give you another tidbit. I don't want to give the whole book away, but I would tell
But no,
you
yeah.
that outside of this clinic, this woman appears, like she just walks up to me and she says to me,
Mhm.
"You wouldn't be able to do what you're thinking about doing if you named that baby." I look like, huh? Like I heard everything she said, but I'm still like, huh? Like what
Yeah.
are you talking
She
about?
probably tells that to all the girls.
I think she does. I think she may have worked there because she
Yeah, I
was
think
very
so. Yeah, I
close to the
think.
place. And so she
So
says
people
that to
again,
me.
though, these are people, right? That are doing all these things. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. And so she tells me this, you wouldn't be able to do what you're thinking about doing if you named that baby. And so she says, I want you to name that baby right now. I said, Justice. And what if it's a girl? I like, Justice.
Hmm.
And so right there, that interruption, right there, or I'm not gonna say interruption, that deposit right there of having me name this baby humanized the experience.
Hmm.
I go in there. I still don't catch on to what type of place I'm in. It looks like a regular clinic. I remember them doing the ultrasound and I looked away because I didn't even want to look at the picture.
Hmm.
And after I do the ultrasound, they took me into another room, and this room was different. I remember sitting on the green couch. I remember there's pictures on the wall. It's like there
Hmm.
was life in this room. And when I'm there and she talks to me and she gives me these 2 little feet, like a little pendant, I still have the pendant to this day. And she says,
She
This is the
knows what she's
size.
doing.
Yeah. Well, this is the size of your baby's feet.
Hmm.
At about 10 weeks pregnant, you're about 10 weeks pregnant. And so I look at these little feet and I'm just like, oh my God, like these little feet are here. And so it just really helped me to start thinking about it. And
Hmm.
they were very sensitive in the manner of this is still your choice, but what we want you to know is that you're still going to be okay. You're going to be
Hmm.
okay. Because I think I had just started thinking about having a child was the worst thing in the world. And they helped me to really say, it's
Hmm.
not the worst thing that could happen to you.
No, it's
This
just the
is
hardest thing that's going to happen to you.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's not the worst. And it centered me, but I believe that it was a God thing. It
Hmm.
was something that when I think about my life, I don't know what it would look like without her.
Where did God fit in specifically, though? Because I'm seeing a lot of people being there
Uh-huh.
for you, people helping you, and people changing your mind about the situation, um, pulling on those heartstrings for sure. So where does God specifically fit in there? Like, did he
In my
send the
prayers.
people? Was he
Oh yeah, he sent
controlling your body to go there? Your thoughts, sending you those that white pages? Like, how does that work?
no, I think what happens is that God is it's the Holy Spirit. How about that? I think maybe that's a
Well, it's
better
still
term.
God, though. I mean, we
Yeah,
same
but
person. So this being, this entity is doing
this
all of these
being
things
that
so
gives
that
you
you
the
can
unction. Yeah, it gives you the unction and how
abort
to
the
move.
abortion.
Yeah, yeah, and how you move. And so I believe that the Holy Spirit led me to the right place. I believe that the 4 things I prayed for, that almost as if that I prayed them directly to God and God honored those things. I
Huh.
think that He guided, just guided my steps in terms of in prayer and in that connection.
So let's tackle those for a minute. The four things that you prayed for. I'm sure they were good things for your daughter, correct?
Good things for our life.
For your
Mhm,
lives. Gotcha. Gotcha.
mhm.
And did how do you, this is a very specific thing. You're asking for good things to happen in your life, but we all know that bad things also
Happen
happen.
too. Yeah.
Right. So how can we attribute the good things to God, but not the bad things to God?
I don't think that we attribute well, first of all, we acknowledge God, but we also acknowledge that there's a devil. So there are different things that happen.
Which
And
is
I
his
don't
fault
think
as
that
well, right?
yes. So I don't
Yeah.
think every
So,
good thing or every bad thing is isolated to one. I think that some things are
hmm,
designed for redirection. I think sometimes when you are rejected, it may feel like a bad thing, but it also may cause redirection. And
hmm.
so God can allow rejection to happen to you in a form to redirect you to where you need to go.
I really hate going here. It's really dark, and I really hate going here 15 minutes into the conversation. But
No,
the
go.
prayer parts, when we're praying for our kids for safety, for beneficial things for our kids, and God says nothing, or you think He's protecting your kid because your kid is safe so far. What happens when he goes to church? What happens when he goes to God's house and he gets assaulted? What happens when she gets assaulted in church? What happens when he gets assaulted in church and you've asked God to protect them? You and I both have had our children, knock on wood, pray, whatever you want to do, kiss things and whatever. Our kids are safe so far and doing so well. But there are parents
We
out
had the
there who
negative
don't
things of
have
life
that.
that happen.
I'm talking massively negative. I'm talking in God's house, massively negative. And these parents were praying for protection for their kids. Why? Why that?
Yeah. And I think we have to acknowledge that there's not just God, but we also have the devil. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that too.
Oh man, I'm so curious why God would allow that in his own house. See, me personally, as a loving father, doing the best I possibly can, which isn't always the greatest at all times, but I'm trying.
Yeah,
I
we're all
would
trying.
not allow the bad guy to assault the children in my house. Like, this is my house. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Of all places, you're gonna do this in front of me? Not a chance. There's not a chance. But my thing with Satan is you mentioned Satan a few times. I'm curious as to why in the world God thought it was a good idea to create Satan
Now
and then throw him to earth. Where did he put him? He threw him to his children in the daycare, in the middle of a daycare. That makes no sense to me. Help
yeah.
me understand.
And I think part of the things that we have to think about in this type of conversation is will too,
Huh.
because we're given the opportunity to have will and
We
choice.
are, yes. What about Satan, though? Well, I mean, my will and my choice would be to live in a world where Satan wasn't thrown into.
Yeah, it wasn't it,
Yeah,
yeah, well, he didn't exist. I
with
do
that,
I do completely agree with that.
there's an
No, I
idea.
completely agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so God created
Well,
him on purpose, knew what he would do, and then kicked him out of heaven, his house, and then put him in our house. Like, thanks, guy. I don't see
yeah.
that as a very smart
And then give
decision.
us the ability to choose when we're
Yeah.
in these fleshy bodies that want certain things,
Mm,
that desire certain things, but
mm.
may not necessarily be good for us.
And he knows. He
Yeah.
knows all of this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Really
there is
weird.
there's a complexity to that. I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as parents, it's not something we would do. And then I think about it often. God in a family court of law trying to get custody of his kids. Not a chance.
I've never
God would
had that
not.
thot. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Right? Could you
Yeah, but
imagine?
I've never thought about it in that way.
Yeah. You drown your kids and you want custody of these ones? Not gonna happen. Not
Yeah,
gonna happen. You
not
created a
gonna
bad
happen.
guy and let him loose and you want these kids? You're gonna look after them? I don't think so. But anyway,
Yeah.
so back to the harm part about it. So besides the devil, why does God, well, I guess why does God allow the devil to interfere with his children at that point? We're asking God
Yeah,
for
I don't know if
protection.
I have the answer to that, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if I have the answer as to why God allows it. All I know is my belief system is that we have will and we have choice, and that there is a almost like a yin and a yang, that there's a God,
Mm,
but then there's the opposite that exists, and
yeah.
we are in the middle.
Yeah.
And some of it is our will. I do believe in faith. I do believe that there's certain things that are designed or orchestrated that help lead us in certain places.
Hmm.
Um, but I believe it's a combination. But no, I don't necessarily have the answer as to God's why.
Yeah, no, that's a good one there. Doesn't make much sense to me.
I mean, I think it's a great question.
Yeah,
I wish I knew the answer.
yeah. Well, I mean,
But no, I haven't came across it.
we're looking to this guy for answers. We're looking to this guy as an all-knowing source of knowledge and goodness.
Uh-huh.
But then he does that, and it's very questionable.
Yeah, it's questionable. It does give you pause. I think that's where faith,
Accountability. Mm,
accountability is another
accountability
another
for his
word.
actions. Do we hold God accountable for his actions?
How does one hold God accountable?
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a bad thing to create Satan. So I'm holding him accountable for that one. If he was here, I'd judge him. I'd tell
I
him.
was gonna say, but I mean, are you sending him to a corner? Like I'm trying to understand, like
Man,
how do
no,
we
no. I would just like to
necessarily?
have a conversation and ask him why he's done these things. And we can start with Satan, then we can go to the flood, and then we can go with bloodshed for forgiveness, and then hellfire and all those other
I
things.
think I would like to be there with you because I mean, I would love to hear the answers for some of these things too.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Let's
studied
yeah.
I studied theology a little bit in college. Only
Mm,
took two courses, but very fascinated and interested in it. And one of the courses was specifically about the gospel, like
huh.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, like just those chapters, a whole
Yeah.
semester on that. So it was a really big deep dive. And then the other one was just a intro to religion type
Wow.
class. And we were able to look at different religions. And I think all of them there's this matter of I mean I guess that's the faith component because there's
Mm.
always this question mark, this quintessential question that nobody really kind of knows. It requires you to just believe. So yeah,
Yeah.
there are questions out there that that I would like
Yeah.
answered too.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one of your, I'm very curious now, sorry, but what is one of your main questions would be? Was like, is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with?
Ah, I mean the whole Adam and Eve setup sometimes it's
Hmm.
like
Yeah, that is a good way to put it. Setup.
yeah. Really eat the apple? Is it
Hmm.
real? I mean, and think about it. We created it to be an apple or whatever the fruit is. But I
Yeah.
would like to know the inside. Like, I wish I could be able to fly on the wall and what was this actually, and what form did it really take? Like, we've weaponized snakes and we've made apples
Hmm.
a certain thing. And I know that those are the spin or the interpretations that we have put on it. But I would really like to know the context of the whole Adam Eve thing. And where was Adam? And did he actually hear it? And why was Eve over there by herself? Like, I got questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How about why are the trees there? Why did God create the trees and put them in the middle of a garden? And
Yeah,
then he
yeah,
let the bad guy in to
yeah.
convince us. And then you knew the whole thing was going to happen to make it worse. Oh,
Yeah, so this whole thing about choice. But
hmm.
yeah, so yeah, there are things that I question. But I think, I'm of a belief system that
Yeah.
I just have I have faith. Like and
Yeah.
that's a choice. That's my choice.
Yeah. So, do you think we can choose our beliefs?
Yeah.
Do you think I
Yeah,
can
we
choose to
definitely can.
believe something to be true?
I do think you can choose, but do I believe that something can be indoctrinated? Like it could be
Hmm.
a part of how you were nurtured and brought up, and it's so ingrained that you don't recognize that there's a choice.
Gotcha. Yes, I was there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, for sure. Um, so yeah, I can't choose my beliefs personally unless I was born into it. And then, even then, I'm not really choosing my beliefs. Somebody else has chosen my beliefs for
Somebody's
me.
choosing it for
Yeah.
you, but I think you have to come to a level of awareness to recognize that it's a choice in order to adapt it or change it. But if you never recognize that what you're doing is a choice,
Yeah.
then you believe that you can't change it.
Hmm. 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 So where I'm at with this is the faith thing. I
Okay.
can't choose to. Well, let's define faith first. What does faith do? Is it the Hebrews 11:1 thing or
Believing without seeing.
believing without seeing?
Mhm.
Gotcha. So believing without seeing. Is there anything else you believe without seeing?
Um, I mean, I believe that my husband and children go and do what they say what they're supposed
Well,
to do every day, and I don't see him
but you
do
have a
it. I
track
mean,
record of them doing it though, right? There's a track record. They've been
yeah,
doing
yeah.
this and yeah, so you've seen it
I
before.
trust that certain things happen,
Trust, there you
a
go.
certain way when I'm not around.
Yeah, absolutely. So trust and faith a little bit different in that scenario, right?
Well, to me, in that scenario, they're about the same thing. Again, it's the believing without evidence or without me seeing it. Like I'm not requiring proof in
Mm.
order for me to believe it.
but you have seen it in the past, so you do have proof that it has been done before by them.
Again, I don't necessarily have proof. Like I can't tell you what my husband does at work every day. I've never went and sat on a job with him.
Hmm.
I only know what he tells me that he does every day.
Hmm.
I choose
Hmm.
to believe that what he tells me is the truth.
That's true. But you
I've
could
never
find the
worked at
truth
his
out if
job
you
with
wanted
him to
to,
know
right?
that.
But
Huh?
you could find that truth out if you wanted to, though. You could go show up at his work and hang out with him,
But
in theory.
I could, but faith is about believing without seeing or without the evidence. I am choosing to believe what he tells me without evidence. I'm not
But you
going
are
there to
able to gather
conclude
that
it.
evidence. This is my point. You're able to gather that evidence if you so wished or so desired. With God, it's a
Yes, if
little
I
different.
desired, I
Yeah.
could possibly get the evidence. I could ask for camera footage of what he's doing every day. It would exist. So
Uh,
yes, I
yeah.
could find the
Gotcha.
evidence of it. Mhm.
Gotcha. So it's a little bit different than the faith in God because we can't so much as find that evidence for that God. It's just stuff that's unseen or unseeable. Am I on the right track here?
I would partially agree to that statement. I don't know if I would
Gotcha.
fully agree, but yeah, I think you're on the right track.
So part of it for me is part of it is you have to accept the unbelievable or and the unseen. To me, that's pretending. That's we're just going to pretend that
Oh,
this is real. I'm having faith that this is a real thing, even though I have no evidence for it. I'm just going to pretend. Like I'm going to pretend that Spider-Man wakes me up in the morning. But he doesn't. But I can pretend that. I have faith that he does. But that's different than the trust that you have in what your husband's doing at work, I guess. It's different because you can actually witness what your husband's doing at work. You can get that evidence if you wanted to. It's
yeah. I
different
mean,
from
I
the
think that it's
faith
still
that you have.
conceptual. I still don't have it,
Yeah.
and I still choose to
Yeah.
believe it without
Mm,
having it.
mm. Faith. It's a weird thing. So faith and faith. Faith and faith. I don't know.
Faith and faith.
I
Yeah.
don't know. So Jesus, let's go to Jesus because faith confuses me. Jesus also confuses me, but that's not much. That's a little bit easier to go with. So who is
Tell
Jesus
me
to
about
you?
your confusion with Jesus. I'm
Yeah, well,
interested.
a lot of different things. Why did he have to
Okay.
die? Number one is why did he have to die?
Okay. I've questioned that too.
It doesn't
I can
make any
admit to
sense
that.
to me. Yeah. God can forgive without bloodshed. He's able to, but he requires it for some reason. Hebrews 9:22, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. We humans don't forgive people by killing things. That's really weird to us and gross and violent. But to God, it's normal and good and just. I don't see the good thing in that. And then he killed himself to himself and then bathed his blood over everybody so that he can't see their sin. It gets really gross and weird.
I don't know. I think it's kind of, yeah. How would I say that? I mean, I
Hmm.
think it's a little bit okay. We're being a little bit of cynical, but I
Hmm.
don't, or some satire there. I don't know, but I don't think everything is literal. I think that
Oh.
something, not I'm gonna say literal. I think that what we have to take into account is what we read and what we see
Hmm.
is the interpretation of how things were viewed during that time period. If we think about our time period right now, the 90s are strikingly different from today. What we allowed our kids to listen to. Like now I ride in the car and hear the songs. I'm like, I can't believe I've been singing that song since I've been 8 years old. And I was riding in the car singing it at 8. And my mom didn't have a problem with it because
Hmm.
during that time, we didn't have that level of awareness about it. It was just something of that time and it felt
Hmm.
completely normal. Certain artists that we allowed to do questionable things that now we have the level of conscious and awareness to say, that ain't
Hmm.
right, or those girls are kind of young, but go back to the 90s and we thought it was perfectly normal. So I
Hmm.
think we have to sometimes
Accountability.
context what worked in certain periods of times is insane to us today
Hmm.
that would not have been necessarily insane in other time periods.
Okay.
So I'll say that. Now, I can I can understand how certain concepts around Jesus is questionable for someone that
Hmm.
does not necessarily have the same or have the belief system or
Okay.
faith component to it. So I could understand the some things questionable.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I get it.
Well, how does it make sense to you though?
I think what I have working for me, number one, is faith.
Well,
Yeah.
I can faith all day long, but that doesn't give me an answer to how this makes any
I
sense.
mean, well, I think for me, it's not required. I think that's the
You don't want an
component
answer.
that's
You don't want it
different.
to make sense.
No, I'm not going to say I don't necessarily want it to make sense, but I
Okay.
am making the choice to believe without a certain level of evidence. Like I feel evident in the connection that I feel,
Hmm.
the things that I've prayed for that have been answered when I feel like I have felt the Holy Spirit. And so those things allow me to have a different kind of faith because I have this different type of connection.
Hmm.
So it all isn't required to, I guess, make sense for me. But again,
Hmm.
I'm very big on speaking for me and not necessarily trying to speak for everyone else because I can
Well, that's
understand.
good.
No, no, no. Well, I'm a person that I respect the intellectual curiosity of everyone.
Hmm.
Like I just do. I love diversity of thought. And so I
Good.
could understand how someone doesn't necessarily, certain things just don't make sense to them. And I just think for
Hmm.
me, certain things don't have to make sense for me because,
Hmm.
again, I'm coming from a different perspective.
Is there anything else in your, thank you for that. Sorry. Is there anything else in your life that you do this for? That it doesn't have to make sense, you're just going to believe it?
I mean, that's something that popped in my head, but I think that takes us down the same kind of road. I don't know if
Hmm.
this is necessary, again, makes sense. I think I don't require evidence.
Hmm. Well, I
Is
mean,
it's
if it makes
better
sense, it's
stated.
helpful to believe it as well, right? I mean, if something makes sense, it's easier to
It's
believe it.
it's helpful. But like
Yeah.
let's say, okay, so you talked about Jesus and you said
Yes.
the part that doesn't make sense to you
One of
is
them.
one of the parts that doesn't make sense is him having to die, almost like a
Right.
sacrifice.
Well, he's an eternal being. He really didn't sacrifice anything,
Sacrifice.
honestly. I mean, if you really think about it, he's eternal,
I mean, yeah, so the flesh part of him died,
but he's still alive.
I
I don't
guess.
know. I don't know. It's that's see and
I,
more confusion.
yeah, I mean, I guess you can say that. I mean, we're tri beings, so it's a soul and it's a flesh kind of thing. And so the flesh part of him is dead, and then the soul part of him still exists.
But his flesh came back, and they were
But
able to
let me
touch
ask you
the
this: do you
holes.
believe in ghosts? Do
No, I
you
don't
believe
believe
in
in ghosts.
angels?
No,
Do you believe in any of
no,
those? So
nothing
you do.
supernatural.
So what do you believe happens at our death?
Hmm.
We
I
cease
think
to
my
exist
brain
mentally.
slowly stops, my heart stops, my body decomposes, and it starts to stink.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So there's no separate component as terms of spirit versus body.
I've got nothing on that. I've got no evidence of that. I've got nothing that's convinced me so far of that. I've never talked to a spirit. I've never interacted with a spirit. Now, you mentioned the Holy Ghost and feeling him before. Now, I was raised in the church and I remember that feeling, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
the
So
same
how do you
feeling I
describe
get.
that feeling?
It's like a tingly, it's like a woo.
Oh no, I mean like how do you explain that feeling?
Oh
What is
yeah.
it that
So
we
I
are
get
experiencing that we think is the Holy Ghost?
it's an emotion. It's an emotion. It's a really excited emotion. I get the same thing when I watch Captain America pick up Mjolnir. I just like
Oh,
and then my favorite song comes on. Yeah, it's that same feeling, and I can get it without this ghost, which is weird because whenever I had this ghost, I was in the company of other people who were all excited, and there was music playing, and it's kind of the same
so it's
thing.
like a
It's just
contagious feeling for
right,
you.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So I mean, I just don't see it. I don't have that evidence for it. I don't have that and I can't just believe something that doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, I can't. It's got to add up for me. Got to have a little bit of uh, common sense in there. I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't add up for me. Jesus is dead, but he's not dead. He's eternal, but he's sacrificed. He needs
Well,
blood, but he doesn't
well,
need blood, and
I
it's so
think it's rooted
confusing.
in I think it's rooted in again, I guess the first step in order to believing the rest of the steps is to believe that the flesh is one thing, but the spirit is another.
How do we get there? How do I get that belief? I can't just believe something. So how am I going to get there?
Hey, and I can and trust me, I never signed up to convince anyone.
Okay.
Like yeah, you probably can quote the Bible better than I can. I know my key scriptures. I have my faith, but I definitely I'm not in the key role to kind of convincing or converting others. What I would say is again, certain things I think are foundational that helps to believe that belief system. I mean, to build that belief system. And
Hmm.
one of them is if I believe that I am a spirit and a flesh, meaning there's a body, but there's also like my soul or my spirit,
Uh-huh.
then it's easier for me to believe that a flesh can die and a soul still be alive. You
Yeah,
get what
it's
I'm like?
easier to
I'm just
believe a
saying like
lot of
how it
different
builds
things.
up.
For sure. Yeah. No, I mean, at that point, if we've got souls, I can go to Venus as the soul factory. That's where all the souls come from, is Venus. I mean,
I
I
don't
could
know how
start.
the souls travel. Like
Oh,
I
but
don't
we can
know.
just pretend and have faith, I mean, we can just keep
I
going
mean,
with these
so
different
is
ideas
there,
and
I mean, so I
concepts.
guess there's no heaven, there's no hell,
But when
there's
it
like,
opens up that whole area, there's so many other possibilities. We can go wild with it to
I
believe
mean,
these
I think
one
the world
specific
does. Like, I
things.
think that's what the world does.
Yeah.
And we all
It's
kind of choose
imaginations.
what we want our, thing to be.
So these building blocks. So building this belief structure, what happens when we got our belief structure? What do we accomplish with this?
I mean, what do you mean? What do we accomplish? I don't know if I understand
What's
the
the end
question. Maybe
goal
like,
of
what's the
building?
objective?
What's the end goal of building this building of belief?
Um,
Is it to
okay, so
be
that
saved, to have a closer relationship with a ghost? Is it to go to heaven? I don't, what is it?
I think it's a couple of things, and I think it depends on what the faith system is. I
Hmm.
mean, ultimately, like if I really want it to be the sociologist in me, it's governance. Like it's
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
giving us this higher value system that kind of helps
Oh.
govern our behavior and what we do because we can create rules and policies to get people to act a certain way, or we can create a belief system and they almost self-govern based off of that belief system. So I think that there's a construct of it's a societal type structure that,
Huh.
having this faith. And then I think the other part is, again, once you have the faith, ultimately you want to go to heaven because you believe that the body is a flesh and
Hmm.
then you are a soul.
Hmm.
And so you care about where your soul now goes
Right.
when the
You don't
body,
want to burn forever. Who
I
wants to
don't, you know
burn
what I'm
forever? I
saying? Like,
mean, who would want somebody to burn forever? That's the real question. Who in the
yeah,
right mind would want somebody to burn forever?
you
The
better do
loving
right. Like,
God that in the Bible, see again, it doesn't make any sense to me. But you had mentioned the higher value system. Now this blows my mind here. Help me understand the higher value system we get from God.
what do you, okay. So the context in which I'm using it is in terms of motivation, where we can
Hmm.
think about Maslow hierarchy of needs. So the bottom one is food, water, shelter. Those are things that we need to have
But where
met.
does the religion part show us this? Like
It's
God, the Bible, or whatever?
well, it's the self-actualization part. It's our what do we think about others? What do we think about ourselves? Those kind of things. So I'm using it terms in terms of our needs being met as far as our values are, what
Hmm.
feels important to us, what feels like our purpose. And I think faith or religion has a way of satisfying that component of our
In which
needs
way?
and needs in terms of it gives us something to look forward towards. It gives us something to
Why is
feel
that a
like we
value
have
though?
purpose.
Why is looking forward to heaven a value system?
Yeah, I think the way that I'm using the word value is different than the way that you may be perceiving
Hmm.
it. I'm using it in terms of a need, meaning we have certain needs that need to be met, and certain are physiologically like they're food, water, shelter, and others of them are more purpose. And so, and that need for self actualization or that need to feel like my life means something or that is purposeful,
Huh.
that faith kind of creates those things for us.
Oh. Well, I can get that without the faith, actually.
I
So
mean, then that's good for
yeah.
you. But I think the question is, why does it matter for some people? Or why does it matter? And I'm telling you what matters for some people. Like, I can't speak for the whole
Yeah.
world. That's why we have different
Good.
religions, different belief systems. Like, I can only speak for what works for me and the
Certain
people
people.
that I know.
Right. And
Yeah.
so certain people have gotten their purpose from the Bible and this religion is where we're going.
Yeah, I say purpose, understanding about their purpose, understanding about how they contribute in the world or those
Hmm.
kind of things. That yeah, it may be
So what about the bad things that have come from this
like
that people have gotten from the Bible? Well, slavery for once that people got from the Bible.
yeah,
That's
people
not really a good
manipulate it.
thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do we decipher that? The Bible's bad in that instance, right?
Uh,
The religion
uh,
would not be helpful. That belief structure would be a sour belief structure.
yeah, but I think that you have people who manipulated things. You have people who manipulated a structure. When you go back to the scripture that was used to, especially in slavery here in America, it was used to abuse a subset of people, and
That's
it
what the
picked and
Bible's doing, though,
chose
with
what.
the slavery thing. It's a very subset of people.
But
The neighbors,
no,
you get your slaves from your neighbors, and then you can beat your
no.
slaves. Exodus
So here,
21,
so
and
so 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 here's my belief.
yeah.
Again, just like I talked about in the 90s, where certain things were acceptable in society versus
Hmm.
then, I don't think slavery looked like what people created here in the US the
Hmm.
same way that it was described back then.
Were they free
It
people?
was
Were they free to
manipulated.
go?
No, I think that
No.
it was more, I think that it was manipulated in order to create a system that was disadvantaged. Now, do I believe that there was some level of classes, meaning I may be of lower class and I may work for you. Right now, I have a housekeeper that does not make that housekeeper my slave, but that housekeeper works for me
You're
in
not allowed to
exchange
beat that
for
housekeeper.
compensation. Huh?
You're not allowed to beat that housekeeper, but God says you're allowed to beat your slaves as long as they don't die. That's different. That's definitely more than class. That's disgusting. I mean, and God never
No,
says in there, he never steps in and says, "Hey, you can beat your slave." You know what? No, scratch that. Don't have slaves. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And then he even sends his own people into slavery because he gets mad at them. I
yeah. I don't know. I think
it's
no.
terrible.
No, I don't think I understand. I don't understand it to mean that, just being
What?
honest with you. Like I
Well, they're
think
not
that
free to go, right? Let's just establish some ground barriers here, or whatever that word is I'm looking for. Are they free to go anywhere? Were they can they leave whenever they want?
in which type of model of
Any
slavery?
slavery, this slavery that's in the Old Testament here that God's talking about, are they allowed to go and do whatever they want, or are they subject to a master?
They are subject to a master. I think that that's one of the things that's true probably in all slavery incidents, that you are
Yeah, and
subject
that's
to someone
horrible.
who's in charge of you.
That's
I think
immediately
the
wrong.
institutional of work, you're subjected to someone who's in charge of
I
you.
can quit that job. That's the difference. I'm
Yeah.
free to quit that job. These people are not free to quit that job. And one of the most disgusting verses in the Bible is Exodus 21:7. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as manservants do. How disgusting. God says this is a perfect, holy, righteous, and good law. Sell your daughter. Could you imagine?
No,
Could
I
you
can't.
imagine?
I
Oh,
can't.
oh.
No, I can't
So you
imagine.
wouldn't want your kids in these slaveries. I wouldn't want
No,
my
I
kids as
definitely
a
wouldn't.
slavery then.
I
So
definitely
I think it's a
wouldn't.
bad thing. We can both, look at this and go, that's bad,
No,
right?
we can agree. We can
Yeah.
agree
Okay.
that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
agree. I wouldn't debate that. My only
Good.
position,
Thank you.
my only position is that number one, we got human beings that have written the Bible, and I
Hmm.
think that certain things are written for certain time periods in certain ways that, as we have evolved as a society, it's hard for us to reconcile. It's hard for us to reconcile some of those things because they are not what life is like for us today.
Hmm. First
Point
Peter
blank,
two
period.
eighteen through
Now, the thing about the
21.
daughter, I can't imagine a time period where that's okay.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. No, God should definitely have stopped in
Personally,
and said, no, don't do that. I mean, if I was God, I would step in and say
I
no.
agree.
But he continues on in First Peter 2:18 through 21. Slaves, submit yourselves to your masters with all respect, not only to those that are good and considerate, but also those who are harsh. He wants you to submit to your harsh masters. That's why doesn't he say don't have slaves? Stop beating slaves. I mean, where's that verse? Where's the verse that says stop beating slaves? I don't
Yeah.
see that one. Oh, it says how to beat your slave. This way, not that way. It's terrible. It's so bad. It's so bad. I don't know how we reconcile these things. So does God think slavery is bad, or does God just kind of accept it because people do it?
I don't know. I'm not God. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't think that God thinks that slavery is good, but I do
Hmm.
believe that we are reading the interpretation of people in a time period.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
So they're just
Yeah.
trying to figure out the world, essentially, is what these people were doing. Trying to figure
Yeah.
out morals, trying to figure out the world around them. Good. That's where I'm at too. That's what I think. And then they added their gods and stuff. Fun. No, good stuff. Thank you so much for that. It's a dark thing to go down and
I
hard to
mean,
tackle for
yeah. I
sure.
mean, it's one of those things. Like, what can you say? Like,
Hmm. Well, we can say
right,
it's
right.
wrong. God
Yeah.
didn't, but we can. We can say it's
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. We can say that it's wrong. Like, there's certain, yeah, you're
Hmm.
absolutely right. It's wrong.
Hmm. So at the end of it, the top of the thing is the pyramid. The reason for it is also to save us from not going to hell or going to heaven instead. What is your interpretation about heaven and hell? What are those places to you?
I mean, heaven's good, hell is
Hmm.
bad.
Yeah.
I
Is
mean,
an eternal hellfire? Is it
essentially,
burning?
I'm guessing yes. I don't know if I believe that to be actually literal.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
That's
I'm not
bad.
sure if that's a literal thing. I think certain things are figurative. Certain things of this is what it feels, and the best way to describe burning is by fire. Is it actual fire? Is it a sensation of burning? Like, I don't
Steam?
know. You know, like a chemical burn doesn't require a
Chemical?
fire, but you
Oh,
feel the
good
sensation
job.
of burning. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you never know. You never know. So
Yeah,
heaven,
yeah.
what is heaven? What happens in heaven? Are we there for eternity? Are we there for a little bit and we go to
That's
another
the,
place? Or
hey, Michael, that's the story. The story is that's where we go
Mhm.
eternally. Like that's what it is for
Gotcha.
us. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, okay. A lot of people believe a lot of different things. Trust me, I've talked to some
I
zingers out
mean,
there.
and here's the thing. I've been to different churches. I have friends of different religious belief systems. I have
Hmm.
friends that are, atheists, and I'm still able to have a human connection and relationship with them, and we get along
Good.
fine.
Good.
Again, I'm a person
Hmm.
that really respects other people's like just intellectual uniqueness. I believe what I believe, but that doesn't necessarily mean others have to also, and I can coexist and be fine.
Love it. Great
Yeah,
idea. Great
yeah.
idea. Now, I lost my train of thought. I had a question. Oh man. Oh, heaven. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the heaven, when you were in heaven, I'm assuming you think you're going to heaven. You're pretty sure you're
That's
going
the
to heaven.
goal. That's the
Okay, yeah,
goal.
so that's the goal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you're in
If
heaven,
I'm wrong, I've lived a good life for no reason. Like, I'm just
well,
playing.
no, you have not. You've left a good life for a good reason to help everybody
I'm
around
just
you to
playing. I'm
leave a
just saying.
better mark on this
I did all these
planet.
good things. No, I'm just playing.
Anyway, while you're in heaven, and these atheist friends, you have friends, they are friends, atheists, or acquaintances, or either way.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
So when you're in heaven and they are not, do you know that they are not in heaven with you? And do you think about them burning?
I don't know. You know what? That's like a question that I have too.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I have like my vision or interpretation of it.
Hmm.
So I do believe that I have this awareness, like in my mind, I have this awareness to who's there and who isn't, and
Hmm.
I get to reconnect or see the people who maybe passed on before me. My question is always is what age are they going to be? Like, am I going to see them at the
That
age
too.
that they died, or what age? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But it's
Hmm.
one of those questions that I have too.
Yeah, you can see your dogs up there, all the ones you've lost in life. Very
Who
curious.
knows?
Very curious. But
Yeah.
so if you're in if let's just go to my grandma. My grandma's in heaven, right? And she
Uh-huh.
knows that I'm in hell, then she's not going to be happy. It's not going to be a perfect place for her. But if my grandma doesn't know that I'm in hell and God wipes her memory of me or makes it good, then that's not my grandma. That's not the same person. So how do we,
I don't know.
it doesn't make any sense. More things that just don't add up to me.
It's like a Men in Black situation. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
do we get the little look
Boom.
here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
wish I
don't
had
know.
one. Oh man, I need to get myself one of
That would
those
be
props.
very convenient if we could. I would take that thing like two or three times in life, just two or three
Oh
times.
man, absolutely. Just for myself. Oh,
Yeah,
I forget
yeah.
that happened.
Seriously.
Oh man. All right, so you're pretty sure you're going to heaven. Do you
That's the
think
game plan.
because it does say, I can't remember off the top of my head, but God mentions that there's going to be a little bit of class warfare in heaven. People who obey the laws on earth versus people who do not obey the laws on earth. Do you believe that'll be a thing?
You mean in heaven?
Yeah.
I didn't read it to be that way. I didn't think we were having war in heaven.
Well, no, class warfare, not war.
Oh,
War.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why would? Come on now, now you're about to get me questioning whether I want to go there or not. Like,
No, I'm trying to find it here. It's Matthew 5:18-19 through 5:18-19. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of the pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands, will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So that's, to me, it sounds like class warfare a little bit, there. I'm better than you because I have a better mansion in heaven because I obeyed the laws, and it's so weird.
I don't read it that way, but here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna suspend judgment on it one until I can go and read it and interpret it for myself. Because you just brought up an interesting point, but I didn't read it or interpret it that way.
Well, you can also
I need to read it again.
No, yeah, Matthew 5:18-19. Definitely check that one out. It also says that God wants you to follow the laws from the Old Testament. For I tell you, this is Jesus speaking, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. And therefore, anyone who sets aside the least of these commands. So he's telling you to follow the Old Testament laws, the Old Testament laws that tell you to burn witches, or your prostitute daughter, burn her because you're a priest, or stone disobedient children because, why not? Could you imagine if we did that nowadays?
No,
we wouldn't have any children.
I can't imagine. Yeah, you're right. We wouldn't.
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, a lot of us wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just a lot of it doesn't add up and doesn't make sense to me. But it's encouraging that you're going to look up that verse. I appreciate that. That's a good one.
I am.
So close it out here. Finishing, tell us where can we find you? Last thoughts, final words. Go ahead.
So my website is DorisJackson-Shazier.com. And also my book, Raising Justice, again, is a story of resilience, of grace, and my faith, and how with hard work and faith, I was able to, elevate from my circumstances. I'm also a leadership coach and management consultant. So I partner with companies and help teach leadership soft skills and help encourage leaders. So again, I can be reached at DorisJackson-Shazier.com. And thank you for such a delightful and exciting conversation. Now I got homework. I wasn't expecting to come here and get homework.
Good. No, yeah, I love it. Absolutely. Send me some homework too. You have my contact information. I love homework. All right, Doris. Thank you so much for your time today. Stay safe out there.
All right, you too now. Thank you.
That's all the show there is for you today. Thanks for listening. As always, you can find all things BSW related on the show's website at thebiblesayswhat.com. If you like what you heard and want to help keep the recording light on, simply go to thebiblesayswhat.com and sign up to be a supporter of the show. Your episodic tithes of $1 or more will get you early access to each new episode on Wednesdays instead of Sundays. And no matter which platform you use to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next episode. Until then, would you kindly share and review the show? Next time on The Bible Says What?
He started off as an angel. And
David,
but
David, God knows everything.
Yes.
God planned this whole thing, correct?
Well, certainly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he knew what the devil was going to do. He planned this according to his will. This is what he wanted to happen. If God said, I'm going to create the most beautiful angel in the world, and that's what he's going to be for eternity, that's one thing.
Yes.
But if God says, I'm going to create the most beautiful angel in the world, and he's going to turn out to be the most horrific bad guy ever to exist, that's another thing. And at
Well,
that point, you go, no, I don't want to create that being. I want to create this being, right?
yes.
Help me understand that. Why is that logical? Why is that loving? Why is that choice? Help me connect the dots.
Well, apparently he gave Lucifer the same choice that he gave.
No, back it up. Back it up. Before he
Okay.
even gave him free will. Back that up.
Yes.
Okay, so God's in infinity, whatever, doing infinity things, thinking of things which he already thought of. That's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But God's already got this idea of what Lucifer's going to be. He knows.
Right.
So instead of creating that being, he can create a different being with free choice. One he knows isn't going to choose that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes sense.
Abort Satan. I mean, that's where I'm at here. Abort Satan.
Yes.
Go to the other guy. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't help me with a choice. It causes suffering and pain. And
Okay.
if we're backing it up to the full creation of everything, God is the one causing suffering and pain through his choice, through his decision, which I don't think was a good one.
Well,